Welcome back. We're talking guns, and more specifically, what, if anything, legislatively can be done? And let's put this in a political context. As you know, we talked about it quite a bit on this show. Just last week, Governor Christie, he vetoed a gun control bill that would have made it illegal for gun owners to possess ammo clips with more than 10 rounds. Now, it's how he vetoed it in part that have made more than a few folks upset. Christie said that banning high-capacity magazines would be, and I'm quoting here directly, trivial and a simplistic solution to a complicated problem. And as you probably would imagine, Newtown parents, which had been trying to get a meeting with the governor, as they've been able to secure with leaders from Washington to state houses across this country, were taken aback not only by the language, but also Chris Christie doubled down and even had more to say on the same issue the following day.
The 10 children on the clip that they advocate for, that their lives are less valuable, if you take the logical conclusion of their argument, you go to zero, because every life is valuable. And so why 10? Why not 6? Why not 2? Why not 1? Why not 0? Why not just ban guns completely? I understand their argument. I've heard their argument. I don't agree with their argument.
Now, a couple things on this. First of all, we had here the father of a son who, after Adam Lanza emptied his clip, told his classmates to run. His son was one of the kids that were killed that day. So he said from personal experience, more children would have been dead in Newtown had he been able to have even a larger magazine clip than he already did. So just put that in context. Now, I should also say part of what bothers me isn't just the tone and kind of the dismissive attitude of the governor, but also the hypocrisy. Chris Christie hasn't always been such a conservative when it comes to gun control. I want you to take a look at this ad. It's from 1995, and this is when Chris Christie was running for state assembly. It says, Chris Christie and Rick Merck support the ban on assault weapons. Okay, and in fact, he went on to say that his opponents were in fact insane here for advocating allowing assault weapons to even be legal. We weren't even going there today. This was just in terms of clip size. Okay, our panel, Jonathan Yedden, Democratic consultant with the Advance Group and former executive director for the Kings County Democratic Party. Dominic Carter, of course, you know him. Richard St. Paul, Republican strategist and former vice chair for the National Black Republican Association, and Andrew Whitman. All right, everybody. We go round and round, it seems, on this subject. And in certain states, they'll take, like New York and Connecticut, for example, they'll enforce strict regulations. Other states won't do anything or even make it even more open carry. Texas and Georgia jump to mind as examples where you can literally go into church, a bar, wherever you want here with a gun on yourself, or you can go to Chipotle with an assault weapon, and somehow that's sane in America. Okay, that said, Michael Bloomberg said, I'm going to spend $50 million here. And in part, what I'm going to do, Jonathan, is I'm going to have a questionnaire. Real simple. One of the questions is, do you support background checks for somebody who wants to get a gun? National polling said 92% of Americans supported that idea. And other questions like that. Will it make a difference? Listen, you guys like to get paid, right? But if you said, Jonathan, will this be money well spent to try and get potential candidates on both sides of the aisle to answer the basic questions and then use those answers as kind of a litmus test for the electorate, will it make a difference?
In some cases, because when you look at districts and the gerrymandering that affect throughout our country, there are just certain districts where it's just not going to play. And there are going to be these handful of districts where this type of issue could make a difference, particularly in the cities, in blue states. So yeah, it could make a difference there. But overall, you're going to have people that are going to look at this, and they're going to want to say no, that they're not for any of these things, to show their constituents, hey, listen, I'm not for Mike Bloomberg stuff. I'm with the NRA. It's going to be a badge of honor for them.
But you don't need, I know you know this, 100-0 in the U.S. Senate or 435-0 in the House. You need majority. Sometimes you need 60 in the Senate.
And that's where it will make a difference.
Can you get to a majority in this country if a majority in this country feel that, yes, background checks, good idea. Yes, people with protective orders, people that have felony records, people that are, protective orders of custody against them, etc. Those people shouldn't have guns. People that are diagnosed here as schizophrenic or whatever, right, they shouldn't get guns. If you say, I think they should, is that going to cost anybody a job?
I don't think so, because these districts are so polarizing and so gerrymandered. It's just not going to make a difference. These Republicans run in districts either unopposed or they run against token Democrats where the Democrat gets 13, 14% of the vote. They're more concerned about a primary,
But if
from the
some
right.
Democrats, Dominic, can get elected, okay, in states that are either red or, let's say, purple, right? 90% of Americans all of a sudden don't become 10% of Americans in places like West Virginia or whatever else. You can get elected on this, can't you? Aren't you speaking for the public will? You're not taking the gun away. You're just saying, before you get it, let's see who you are.
It depends on the district. I agree with everything that was said. I want to believe, Richard, I know your heart is in the right place in terms of you're representing
On this
America's
issue, yeah.
will on this issue,
Yeah.
America's will as it relates to this. But you're right. There are some communities where they're going to want to put down that they're anti-gun control.
Okay, I know he's right. I know he's right, Andrew. But don't we make the biggest mistake that we drive off of the 60 congressional districts that feel that way or feel the opposite way? That's not America. America's the middle, and America's a toss-up on some
this
stuff.
debate and another aspect in where Bloomberg should focus his funding that we haven't talked about yet, which is making this a motivating issue that drives people's votes. It is gun support, being a gun advocate. If you are a gun advocate in this country, that's much more of a voting issue. That may drive your vote a lot more than if you support gun control. A lot of people say they support gun control, but it doesn't drive their vote. The economy drives their vote, or security drives their vote, or other issues drive their vote. Making this a voting issue, not just to make people agree with you and to get people elected who agree with you, but to motivate people to actually make that the basis for casting their vote, that's the bigger challenge for
That's
Bloomberg.
true. People who own guns are very passionate about owning guns. Why? Because they believe they have the Second Amendment right to own it. That's one of the key
And I know
reasons.
I'm not talking about taking the guns away.
No, but any restriction on owning a weapon is seen as leading to taking guns away. That's why people fight so passionately.
Even though,
for
in
it.
that same polled question, the majority of gun owners, the majority of members of the NRA believe in background checks.
Right. And closing the loop, for example, on
People on
sales.
terror watch lists, for crying out loud. They can.
It only benefits them to have stronger laws, because it's the rotten apples that are hurting them, that are screwing them. Every time there's a shooting or something, we all jump back and we all go back to it. Whereas if you had stricter, more fairer, just common sense things like a universal background check,
That's when the passion
it benefits
happens,
them.
when kids are killed, when people are killed by people who have legal weapons. That's when people say, oh, we need more gun control, we need more gun control. But people who have guns are always passionate about it. It doesn't take
But
an
my
incident
point is, Richard,
to get
if I
passionate
take
about
out the morality or the good guy and I just look at it from a political standpoint, if I was the Republican Party today and I'm saying, all right, how can I get ahead of issues that are going to hurt me down the road? You see how gay marriage is going. Well, I'd say, I'm not going to restrict anything on guns, but I'll go for the background checks. Because who wants a crazy guy or some guy who's, the guy says I'm gonna kill my wife if I get my hand on a gun. Why are we letting this guy get his hands on a gun, right? That's an easy one to do. And then you diffuse the issue for Democrats. The same thing with immigration. Do the toughest enforcement thing you want. But if you get ahead of it, you got a shot at the Latino vote. My point is, somehow, some way, I've been saying this for 20 years, maybe one day I'm going to be right on this, the public's going to say enough is enough. Another Newtown, what's it going to take? Why don't Republicans get ahead on this thing instead of saying they're coming for my guns, they're kicking my door down in the dead of night, they're going to take my shotgun?
But look, all politics are local. So just let's take an example. Congress approval level is at a all-time low, 7%, right? But meanwhile, if you go, what's your congressperson's approval in their district, it's going to be higher than 7%. But yet when the body as a whole, it's a low percentage. Same thing with gun control. I mean, and it's all politics are local. So therefore, gun control may not be an issue in most Republican districts. They don't want to hear it. But as collectively as Americans, universal background checks is supported 90%. But when you go to District 7 or 6 or 5 as a Republican district, it's a lower percentage. Therefore, it's not an issue for Republican
How much lower
folks.
can it be if it's 90%?
But that collectively,
But
but what is it per district?
Every district in America has got to be over 50%.
Maybe. I mean, we don't know.
Gotta be. Gotta be.
There's another-
Otherwise,
Even
it
if it
couldn't be
is,
90 overall.
even if it is, it's not a priority issue.
There's another aspect of what the NRA does. It's also a trade group. It's also designed to encourage the
Not to
beers.
let facts get in the way of a good story, but the NRA supported a background check. Okay? We're not talking about banning assault weapons. How crazy could that be, right? We're not talking about smart guns. We're not talking about, ammo clip sizes, even though the majority of Americans agree with everything I just said. 92% of Americans don't even agree the sun comes up every morning, and they agree that background checks are a good idea. The NRA support it, their membership support it.
That was in the
It can't
90s
be that
when
flipping
Chris
hard.
Christie supported a background check, and also supported
Ba-
the
banning assault
ban.
weapons.
And he's flipped on it also. The NRA, it makes money. In addition, it helps the industry, and if they
I know.
scare
I
people,
just think,
that spurs gun
I just
sales.
think
They're doing
there's
the job
sometimes
right.
where you say, if they went there, they'd be surprised by the reaction they get. I would have said the same thing, I swear to God, about gay marriage a year ago. They would have been surprised that they wouldn't have gotten crushed for trying it, right? I think if they just did this, it's politically smart for Republicans to limit what they'll actually go on. And I just think
but why should they do that? If they're getting money from the NRA to have just the opposite opinion, and if they're running safe because all politics
I'll
are
tell you
local,
why. I'll tell you why.
should they do that?
Right now, some of them run hostage to the NRA. There's going to be another tragedy at another school. I don't know if it's a college. Wait, I don't know if it's a high school. I don't know if it's a grammar school. It's going to happen, okay? They don't want to. Do you remember when Lane LaPierre did that loony press conference and the rest, and those guys were like, Jesus, a few of them, in fact, even broke ranks? They're going to learn who's got leverage, who's got hand. In every relationship, somebody's got hand. They got more hand than they think. Where's the NRA going to go? They're going to support Democrats? Are there enough loony primaries that are going to really, throw out the Republican leadership?
Ask
I
Eric
think.
Cantor.
But he didn't lose because of the NRA. He lost because the district thought that he left them. And I want to get in the whole Virginia thing. I'm only saying, I think they'd be surprised. I think it's smart politically. And God forbid, I also think it's smart on a policy level. Okay, when we come back here, the issue of the week, at least domestically, has to do with our border. And the president, he deals with more backlash surrounding that crisis and his handling thereof, fending off attacks not just from the right, but from the left too. We'll have a look at that when we come back.